What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Philosophical Misfit podcast. Today, it is episode number 7. And you know what that means, right? Number 7? Number 7 is the number of love. I actually have no idea. I just made that up. But let me tell you why I am deciding or have chosen to talk about love on episode number 7. It's really nothing special. So it sounds like a big deal, but it's not. But the last episode was on all about, fear and how I've learned to manage fear and get through fear. And that was episode number 6. And I did that for a reason. I don't know why numbers, and I guess you could call it numerology, even though I haven't really looked into that, but it's kind of similar to what I'm talking about. I don't know. Numbers have always meant something to me in a weird kind of way. And there's been periods throughout my life where certain numbers have like when I went a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, to almost be exact, because it's coming up on December. So 3 years ago, when I started to doubt all of my beliefs, get really skeptical and philosophical about everything, I actually had a mental breakdown. Wow, I'm starting this episode off, the right way, going straight into it. But I'm not trying to make this super heavy. I'm just telling you what it is. So when I had this mental nervous breakdown, I started seeing the number 2 everywhere. 2, 2, 2. Every time I would look at the clock, it would be 2, 2. Every time, it would be like 3, 3 or 4, 4 or whatever. And a lot of people are like, it means a number of different things to a lot of people. But to me, it meant something. I was like, I guess I'm in the right place. I still don't know really what it means, but it's just numbers have always meant something to me. And so anyway, that to say, the last episode, which was episode number 6, I did on fear, because to me, number 6 has always been the number of man. The number 6 has always been the step below perfection, because number 7 in my head, has always been the number of God, or that signifies perfection. That's how it's always been in my head. I don't know how accurate that is, or if that's even right, but I just have these different thoughts for different numbers, and they all mean something to me. I don't know. It's just, I know it's one of those things where it's like, could be all in my head. Maybe it is all in my head. I don't know. But because the last episode was on fear, and it was all about how I've navigated through fear, through panic, through anxiety, depression, which the root of that is fear, all of that, I needed to make a episode on love and these different lessons that I've learned with love. And I want to address this because as much as I doubt God, as much as, I don't believe in God, I've come to the realization that I don't believe in God. As much as, I am at where I'm at, there's a lot of verses and principles in the Christian faith, in Christianity, that I still hold dear to me and I still hold true to my heart. I think there's plenty of principles in the Bible, different Bible verses that have, principles that can be applied to everyday life, whether you're Christian, not Christian, and they've proven to be beneficial to me. And so like one of them, for example, is love your neighbor as yourself. You don't have to believe, you can be completely atheist and that principle will still help you in life. So another principle in the Bible that I have come to time and time again that is true whether you believe in him or not is there is no fear in love. And wherever there is fear, if you learn to fill it with love and to love that area, the fear will dissipate. The fear will disappear. So wherever there's an area in your life of fear, if you learn to love that area, then the fear will dissipate. So that's just kind of a principle that's a principle lesson that I've learned, lesson that I've practiced. I think that's a better way of saying it. A lesson that I have practiced throughout my life. And so because the last episode was on fear, I wanted to talk about love. And actually on my YouTube channel, I did an entire series. I think it's 7 episodes, 7 episodes on love and the different lessons that I've learned with love. And if you want to watch that series, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, whatever, go head down in whatever description there is and watch that series. Because I'm just briefly going to talk about the things that I talk about in that series, and you'll get the main points. But I actually, today, right before I was getting ready to record this podcast, I rewatched the series. I just kind of like sped through the series, and I was like, wow, like this is some good stuff here. And I made it a year ago, and so I had not forgotten, but forgotten. So I hadn't forgotten, but I did forget, like, the different stories that I told and how I articulated things. So I want to start off by just talking about some of the main points that I talked about in this series. But before I get to that, what I do want to say is another reason that I am doing this podcast and talking about this is because not only because of the number 7, not just because this principle of fear in love, and there is no fear in love, but because the word love has lost its meaning. The word love has lost its weight. And the word love is associated with feelings. The word love is associated with all emotion, really, but it's not that at all. And because we just throw around love the same way we throw around a lot with our words and what we speak, the word love, and love, not just the word love, but love has lost its meaning and it's lost its weight. So that's the main reason that I want to talk about this, and I want to explain through these points that I'm going to talk about briefly, that I bring up in this series that I have on love, how we can gain back that weight of love. How can we get back that, that fire, that spark, that love? I feel like it once was. Like, love was once this really, really powerful thing, and now, I mean, everyone does it. I'm guilty of it. I've done it. Just passing by, we meet somebody we like, and we're like, man, I love you. Or just even saying that, I'm just a person who loves everybody. And it's like, actually, when you actually look at love and what it is and the power of love, I don't think you would be saying that. And so these are just some of the things that I want to address. So the first point in this that I'm going to address is really asking the question, how do we get back the weight of love? And I think we can gain it back by asking one simple question. And before I tell you what this question is, I'm going to tell you just this short story about years ago. I was in a church service, and my dad was sitting beside me, and one of my other mentors was preaching. And in this service, I was dozing out. Like, I was not paying attention to what the speaker was saying at all, which I did a lot in church. And I just started like thinking these really deep philosophical thoughts. And so while I was sitting there thinking these things, all of a sudden this question popped into my head. I looked over at my dad, and this question came into my head. And it was, what would my dad say to me if I asked him, do you know that I love you? And so when this question hit me, I should say, it started to really shake up my whole world and everything I understood about love. And that's because the question, even though I was thinking about asking it to my dad, I was thinking about asking my dad, do you know that I love you? The question wasn't really for him, was it? The question was for me. The question, do you know that I love you, was asking him and really letting him in on my process of, am I doing enough? Because like I've said, love is not a feeling, and I'm going to get to that more, but love is not a feeling. Love is an action. And so how do the ones closest to you that you say I love you the most to, how do they know that you love them? Other than you just saying, oh yeah, I love you. Love you too, whatever. How do they know that you love them? And so the more I thought about this question, the more that it was bringing back this weight of, wait, love is actually it's a responsibility that I have to that person. It's a responsibility that I have to love them and to show them that. That's my responsibility. And when I was faced with this, it was heartbreaking, but in the best way. It was heartbreaking in the best way. So when we got back in town from that trip, because we were out of town, I asked my dad. I said, I told my dad, I said, hey, I need to talk to you. And so we sit down to talk, and I asked him, I said, do you know that I love you? And it broke me. I mean, he didn't even say anything. And it's like, to my dad, of course he would say, yes, of course I know. Of course I love you. I mean, me and my dad have had a pretty good relationship the past few years, and we still do. And just me asking that and him saying yes was good, but at the same time, it was me saying, I know, and this is why the question was meant for me, even though I asked it to him, because I knew in my heart, I was like, I know that I can do a better job of loving my dad. I know that I can. And so, and this question started to permeate all of my relationships. And so I asked my dad, but then I knew, I was like, I got to ask my mom. I got to ask my sister. I got to ask my brother, because I need them to know, not just this, everyday sort of, I love you, and just, oh yeah, I love you. I love you. Just saying it. But do they know? How do they know that I love them? And again, yes, it's a question you ask to someone, but the question is meant for you. And I've thought about this in relationship to my friends as well. And I haven't asked my friends this question, but I've thought about it in regards to, do they know that I actually care about them? Do they know that I love them? And so I think that's the question. That is the question that you need to start asking yourself to help bring back that weight of love. And the second thing that I want to bring up about love, the second part to this is something that I've already addressed, but love is not a feeling. And where that might seem really bizarre to some people, like, what do you mean that love is not a feeling? Well, let me ask you this. When you think about you being in a relationship with somebody and you say, I felt so loved with that person, what did you actually feel? Because if you think about it, what you felt was joy. Or what you felt was, you were happy in that moment. Or what you felt was you were comforted. Or you felt understood. See, love is an action. Love is not a feeling. And the reason, just to hit this home a bit more, let me put it in these kind of terms. So if we associate love with all feelings that feel good, then we got love completely wrong. And let me just give you a analogy or a situation to think about. So let's say, for instance, there's a mother and her child, and there's this man that breaks into their home, and now he is holding he's holding gunpoint to the child. The child is at gunpoint, and his mother jumps in front of the bullet and takes the bullet for the child. Now, I'm sure all of us would call that love, right? We would all call that an act of love. But let me ask you something. Do you think in that moment, not do you feel, but do you think in that moment that mother felt joy, felt comforted, felt understood, felt peace, felt all of these feelings, quote unquote, that we associate with love? No. So love is so much more than that. Love is not a feel-good drug type feeling that we've just constantly been throwing it around in our society, in our world to be. It's not just this word, but it is an action. And that action and sacrifice can hurt, which leads me to my third point, that love hurts. And it's painful, but why is it painful? Why is love so painful? Why do we reach this point in love where it's painful? which doesn't, if you think about that still, that doesn't even make sense. And that contradicts why people would say that love is an emotion. Because, you'll associate that emotion with all with all things that feel good. But then what do you do when that's pain? When that looks like pain, when it feels like pain, when it feels like sacrifice. And so I would say that the reason why love hurts so much is simply because people are imperfect. And I know that sounds cliche. I know that sounds super simple, but let me explain a bit more. If people were perfect, then love would be easy. Let me put it that way. If people were perfect, then love would be easy. But because people are imperfect, this is the reason why it hurts. And I actually think that this is the beauty of love. I actually think this is probably the most beautiful part of love. It's that we can actually use our imperfections diving into our imperfections for someone else is love. And let me explain that. So, say you have a fear of rejection, like you have a fear of rejection from a person, a person that you love, diving into that imperfection, diving into that fear that you have because of love for an individual, saying, I know that there's a huge possibility that you're going to reject me and that I'm going to feel rejected and I might be sad or depressed or whatever. But regardless, I am choosing to love you. I'm choosing to dive into this area of me that's broken, this area of me that's not fixed, this area in my life where I'm not whole. I'm choosing to dive into that for love, for you, for this relationship, regardless of if you're going to love me back and whatever that looks like. Because loving somebody back, that's not like in a mutual exchange of, oh, I only love you because you love me too. And we have this mutual exchange back and forth. And it's like, no, like, yeah, sure, that's relationship, but that's not like love. That's like a partnership. And yes, partnership and love, it's a part of each other. And I get that. But I mainly, right now, just in this point that I'm trying to make, is that for sacrifice and why love hurts so much for the people that love with all of their heart. And look, it's just like what I was saying with you diving into your imperfections. It's like, I know that I'm going to get hurt or that person is going to hurt me, but I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to be there for them, and I'm still going to ride this out, whatever it looks like. That is love. That is true love. That's not this, oh, I'm only going to love somebody if they love me back. No, that's selfish. That's not what love is. I don't even know what to call that, but the problem is that people are actually calling that love, which is not love. I mean, it's respect, and respect is a part of love. But like I was talking about with the love is not an emotion. It's like, when you say you feel love, is it one of those times where it's not actual love, but you just feel respected? And so that comes back to, what I'm saying about why love hurts so much, why love is so painful. It's like, will you still be there? Will you still love? Even if you're disrespected, even if you're not respected, but you've still made a promise to that person, to that relationship, saying, I will be here for you. So this leads me to the next point I want to make, which is these two mindsets that you can have that I think are on top of sacrifice, or maybe these two mindsets are actually underneath of sacrifice, going even deeper into what love actually is. One of my mentors that, I love this guy to death, really do. He is the one that has taught me the most about love. I mean, it's just incredible. I mentioned him in the series on my YouTube channel about love, and it's incredible the things that he's taught me about love. And he taught me about these two mindsets, and he said the foundation of love, the foundation of all true love, is accountability and responsibility. It's accountability to that person, saying, I am now, because I love you, I am accountable to you, and I am responsible for you, and I am responsible to you, and I am accountable to you. For you, to you, accountable, responsible, it's all there. It's like, you are my responsibility, I am accountable to you, and sometimes vice versa, sometimes not. But that, like I said, that's not what love truly means. I'm just talking about love as an individual saying, withstanding or keeping the weight of the word love, what it actually is. It's just a person, whether they receive it back or not, saying I love you means that you are accountable to them and you are responsible for them. And you will dive into your insecurities. You will dive into your fears for them and sacrifice these things. And the beautiful thing about that, just to kind of recap and go back a little bit, the beautiful thing about laying down your fears for somebody else is that will probably, as much as it will hurt, that is probably the brightest light that the world will ever see. When somebody lays down their fears, when somebody lays down their insecurities, their pride, all of it for somebody else or somebody, a relationship or whatever, that is probably the brightest light that the world will see. That's what changes people right there. Sacrifice, love and sacrifice, the greatest stories are told. I mean, the gospel story. I don't believe in God anymore, but that is a beautiful story. The story of Jesus and dying on the cross. And when you think about, John 3:16, it's a beautiful story. It really is. And so anyway, getting back to what I was talking about with accountability and responsibility being the foundation of love. That's what it is. When you think about it, if you truly love somebody, I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm just wanting to drive it home that you are saying that you are accountable and responsible to that person. And that is a choice that you're going to have to make every day, regardless of what you're feeling when you say, I love you. Which leads me to the next point, that love without free will does not exist. I am a huge advocate for free will. I'm not a determinist by any means. I have a lot of problems with determinism. But I've done a lot of research, in-depth research for the science and neuroscience behind free will. And does free will exist? And it's there. It's free will absolutely exists. Now, technically, I think I've mentioned this before, but I am a compatibilist, which means that I do think science and the universe and the world around us is very deterministic. But I think us as human beings and consciousness, conscious human beings that are able to do these things do have free will. And so because I technically, believe in both, I'm a compatibilist. But free will, talking about human nature, right? So let's look at human instinct in regards to without free will, love does not exist. So human instinct says it's mostly a fight or flight type thing. Human instinct is mostly, either it's whatever situation has come your way. At the heart of it, if you're leaving out all philosophical jargon or whatever, it's fight or flight. And then you look at love, because what love does is in the moments where it's flight, where you want to flight, you choose to fight. And humans have that choice. We have that ability to do that. And to me, that's what true love is. When you look at science, when you look at determinism, when you look at human instinct, when you look at the survival, like just wanting to survive as human beings, and then you look at what love actually is, then it's like you know that love, that free will exists because of love, and love exists because of free will. I think it's vice versa. I think if the world is completely deterministic, then true love, the love that I'm talking about, wouldn't be a thing. Love is something more. Love, there's even science behind what are the core emotions, and love is not in there, because love is a gathering of all these different emotions. Love is something completely different. And, when I start to talk about love and when I start to think about love and talk about all these things, it leads me down a path that's less atheistic. Even though I don't believe in God, it leads me down a path that is less atheistic and more agnostic. Because when I start thinking about love and what it actually is and how it actually plays a role in life, then I'm like, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more, because love is something more. It's defiant of science. It's defiant of materialism. It's defiant of all these things. Yet it does exist, because I, in my life, have experienced it in relationships. And so I'm like, there's got to be something more. And if there's not something more, we are something more. And what does that mean? So, and that leads into another discussion and another very philosophical discussion, but won't get into that. So the next point I want to make is you can't truly love someone if you don't first love yourself. So everything that I just mentioned, the whole, do you know that I love you? Asking that to yourself. Do I know that I love me? Have I shown myself that I love me? Love is not a feeling. So on the days that you don't want to wake up and do what you feel like you were destined to do, are you still going to do it? Because you love yourself and you want yourself to succeed. Are you loving yourself in that way? Are you not paying attention to how you feel in the moment, but saying, actually, I know this is good for me and that I need this, and that I will be better for it. So are you doing that? And then, love hurts so much. I think that's just a given. And I'm just going through the points that I made in regards to you loving yourself instead of it being all about relationship. And this is a big one: accountability and responsibility to yourself first. Because if you haven't learned how to be accountable and responsible to yourself and to your dreams, any relationship that you have, it won't work out. It will not work out. You'll be miserable until you work it out. And I have been a witness of that. I'm not going to say a victim to it. I've been a witness to it. And it's just the truth. If you don't first learn how to be accountable and responsible to yourself and to your dreams and to the life that you want to live, then you'll never be able to be accountable and responsible for somebody else. And the thing is that, and this is a problem of mine too, is that, this has been a problem of mine for a lot of my life, is that I have this kind of like savior complex, that it's like, I don't need to be accountable or responsible to myself, but I feel this duty to be accountable and responsible to other people and to love other people. Why do I need to think these good things about myself? Like, I just want to think it about other people. And a lot of people are like that. I've met a lot of people like that, and maybe that resonates with you right now. But the thing is, the energy that you waste on, one, loving other people instead of yourself, and two, self-hatred, will completely burn you out and dry you up of all love. And pretty soon, you won't have any energy or willpower at all to be able to love anybody else, to be able to love other people at all, because you'll be so drained and empty, you will have nothing left. So when you love yourself, that's like you getting filled up with gas. That's putting fuel on your fire, and then you'll be able to actually love people when you actually learn to love yourself. So that is a very rough, honestly, I was just flying through those points, that each of those points that I made are individual videos that are 10 to 12 minutes long, where I go more in depth about it on my channel. And I made a playlist on my channel as well with those videos. So this is the last video and the last point I want to make that really sum things up for me. And so I already told you about the mentor that I had, that, sat down with him a couple times for literally 4 or 5 hours straight. And all he did was talk to me about love and how powerful love is. Because when you really think about it, when you really go in depth And I mean, believe it or not, I've been talking almost a half hour now, and I feel like this is just barely scratching the surface. This is just hardly scratching the surface. I mean, there is so much more to love. I mean, it is the philosophical question of choice ever. I mean, ask somebody, like, ask a philosophical, intellectual person, what's the meaning of life? Willing to bet half of them, maybe more than half of them, will say love. But it kind of is that simple, but it's not that simple. And I actually addressed this on a different YouTube video that I did this past week, where somebody asked me, what is the meaning of life? And I thought about it a couple of days ago, a couple of days prior to that. And I said, actually, I've been thinking about this. And what I thought was, the meaning of life, I think, has nothing to, it's not a word. It's not a sentence. It's not a word of wisdom. It's not some mantra. It's not some passage. But the meaning of life is a story. I think the meaning of life is a story that we can't put words to. And like, everybody has seen those films where you finish the film and you're like, that perfectly captured the essence of what I feel like life is about. That perfectly captured that. And when you try to talk to other people about it, you're just like, you just got to watch it. It is an experience. It is a story. You got to watch it from beginning to end. That I think is the meaning of life. I think the meaning of life is a story, and I think it is a story about love. And what that story is, I think it's your story. I think it's who you are. I think it's everything that you are, from the person that you don't want to be all the way to the person that you dream to be. That story of you making that journey, you making that leap, you writing that story for the world to see. I think that is the meaning of life. I think, that's legacy, right? Legacy could even be the meaning of life. And, I could go into that, but I won't, because I haven't even gotten to the last point of this, which I don't even know how I got off on that tangent. This is what I do. This is where my brain goes. Welcome to my head. So the last point that I want to make, like I was saying, when I was sitting down talking to my mentor, and my mentor, I talked to him a couple times, 4 or 5 hours straight, all that. The last day that I saw this mentor of mine, when I was living in California, it was the last day. It was my last day, and I was leaving to fly back to Virginia the next day. And I go up to him and I just tell him thank you. And I tell him thank you for everything that he's taught me, everything that he said to me, all of it. And I tell him that I love him. And he doesn't say anything back. And then he just says thank you. And I was really put off by that, because if when you're talking to somebody for 4 or 5 hours straight a couple of times, like, you're like, okay, there's a connection there. And I definitely felt a connection there, and I know that he felt a connection there too. I mean, I consider him a friend now, and we've talked since. It's not like I haven't seen him or talked to him since. But when that happened to me, when I said I love you, and he didn't say anything, and then he said thank you, and I said it again, and then he said thank you, that had more impact on me than anybody telling me that they love me. And I'll tell you why. Because he understood everything that he told me. He understood what it means to be accountable and responsible, and what it means to sacrifice, and what it means to truly say I love you, and the power and the weight and the responsibility behind that, to saying I love you. Saying I love you is a promise, and it's a promise that's an action. It's a promise that he will act on. And he knew that in that moment he couldn't make that promise, and he couldn't do it. And I was blown away by that, because it put the weight of love, that love is what love is supposed to be, how we are supposed to use the word love is like that. Now, I think there's actually more power in not saying I love you to people than there is in saying I love you to everyone. I think there is more power in And when people say, I love you, just in passing and say, oh, I love you, man, whatever, to just say, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. That's what I've learned how to do. And I've noticed in me that love has taken on a whole new meaning in me. And I've protected that part of my heart. I've protected that part of myself because I'm like, I don't want this word. I want this word to have weight. I want this word to have meaning. I want it to be powerful. I don't want it to be just this everyday mundane thing that everybody says and, it actually means nothing. I need it to be something more. And so in order for that to happen, it's not me doing more. It's not me saying it more, but it's actually me saying it less and doing more. It's quality over quantity. And I want to make sure that my relationships and the people that I say I love you to, I mean it. And I actually live it. And I keep that promise. And I think about that with every single person that I meet in every relationship that I have. I'm like, I can't. And I've had people say it to me since. I've had people tell me that they love me. And I just say, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I don't hold it against them because, they've probably not thought as deeply as I have about love and what it means philosophically in regards to life and the deeper meaning of life. They probably haven't. I don't know. But to me, I know that this feels like truth and this feels right. And in order for me to do my part in actually getting love back to where and what and who, whatever, love is supposed to be, it is not just openly saying I love you to every single person that tells you I love you, or saying I love you to every single person that tells you that they love you, but it's actually knowing when to not say it. It's actually just keeping it in yourself, like it's a gift that you give to somebody. Because it really is. When you really think about everything that I just mentioned, love is truly a gift. And it is a gift that I don't think should be given lightly. And I think because of that, there is immense weight and power behind it. And it's not something to be taken lightly because of the promise in pain. The promise in love, which is pain. And I think making that promise is inevitable, that you're saying hard times will come and I am ready for them because I believe in you and now I am accountable and responsible to you because you're worth it. And that's what I appreciate about my mentor not saying that to me. And since then, he has said it to me. He has said, I love you. And let me tell you, oh man, it has meant so much more to me knowing that at one time he knew that he couldn't keep that promise. But then once he made the decision, then he knew. And he said, I can do this and I love you. We're in it together now. We're in it together for life. And it meant the world to me. And again, he didn't say it at first. And imagine what would happen to you. And I mean, this is my challenge to you, really, is for you to not just feeling the difference and just testing this out with me. And I say testing it out, but I know it for myself because I've been, practicing this and experimenting with it and experiencing it for a few years now. Is instead of whenever somebody says, I love you, just take a step back and ask yourself, can I make this promise to them? Can I walk through this with them? Can I be accountable to them and responsible to them and responsible for them? Can I make this promise? And if you can't, and if it's just a stranger or somebody, whatever, then I challenge you to just say thank you. And if they ask you why, to explain to them, I actually have a huge appreciation, and I think love and what love is a lot more powerful than what you're making it out to be. And I don't take love lightly. And so I want to make love what it should be. I want to bring back the meaning and the weight and the power of love. I think that's what will change people, and I think that is what will change the world. If everybody, and I'm not saying everybody has to adopt this same philosophy and these same points that I'm talking about in regards to love, but I do think that if people didn't say I love you as much as they do, then love would become so much more powerful. Love would be so much more. And so I feel like I could just keep on repeating myself, but I also feel like I'm beating a dead horse. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to leave you with that challenge to love people, to truly love people, and to start to discover for yourself what that actually means. So I really appreciate you listening to this whole podcast, listening to all of this, and go out and love, truly love with all your heart and with everything that you are, and love yourself first. I'll leave that there. So leave that right there for you. All right. So I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Peace out.